CASA stands for Court Appointed Special Advocate. A CASA volunteer is someone who works with the courts to advocate for children while they are in the foster care system.
When you visit with them once a month, when you have a permanency hearing, that's not enough to build that trust. And so the child never really tells you what's going on. We get to now know through the CASA workers what's actually going on, what's gone on, where they want to see it go in the future.
Well, I don't think in the law the legal system is great, but it's so hard for a judge or a jury to get all the facts. And I think that CASA does tremendous work in helping get all the facts out there and let the people who make the decisions for that child's future let them know what's really going on. And I think that's why it's essential to have CASA.
They are needed. They can be there with kids much more frequently than a caseworker can. The department gets overloaded, they're understaffed, it's a cycle. Sometimes we're fully staffed, sometimes we're not. CASA, if you're there, you're at the doorstep, you're checking on stuff for us. You're calling, you're saying, hey, how are you? You're there supporting your kid. You're bringing a sense of identity to your kid that they may have lost because they don't have their biological family anymore, but they have you, and that's what you need.
And I love that because there's no way to get that information otherwise, and it's probably the only way you're going to get that information ever.
CASA volunteers go through almost 30 hours of training and instruction before being sworn in by a judge. During this time, they learn about the foster care system and how to most effectively advocate for a neglected child in need.
Preserve the confidentiality.
And I will preserve the confidentiality.
Of all information received.
Of all information received.
We're about to get our first case.
Well, you know, the statutory scheme of these cases, it involves multiple hearings all the way. We start with the adversary hearing, and then you go to the status, and so you have all these different hearings within the 12-month or the 18-month statutory time period for these cases. And at each hearing, I receive a report from the CASA advocate. Compare the CASA report to what I receive from the department. And I look for differences of opinions and things of that nature because that's what I want. I want to see different views, different beliefs as what's in the best interest to the child so that we can read those out and discuss those during the course of the hearing. So I would say every case is extremely important to me to have a CASA advocate on that because I use it, their report. It's very much a major part of my decision making and my views of the case too. So it's very important to me.
My name is Rashawna Harvey, and I recently adopted twin 2-year-old boys through the CPS system, and our adoption was assisted by our CASA caseworker, Loretta Hale, and she was a big influence on all of us through the whole process. Volunteers maintain a positive relationship with their child until they are adopted in a permanent, loving home. This can sometimes take years.
I had a case that lasted 3 years, one that lasted 3.5 years, and one that lasted 2 years. So, you can't take very many cases, when they last so long, and that's why we need more volunteers. Because the advocates get involved in these long-term cases and can't take any more. One of the things I think that surprised me with my first case, it lasted 3 years, and at the end of that case, I grieved those kids because the case was over, and I didn't have that much contact with them. I do get a Christmas card from them once a year, and those are really, really precious to me. But I grieved not being with those kids and missing them. And that's hard, it's difficult. You get so attached to those kids.
I have a case where I had 2 little brothers, a 3-year-old and a 21-month-old. When I first took the case, my little 21-month-old boy was at Cook's Hospital. I went over to visit him, and I walked into this big sterile room, and there he was lying in a oversized crib. He was unresponsive. He had tubes coming all over his body, and his skull had been split open from the front all the way to the back due to brain damage that was caused by a beating from his dad. I looked at him lying there in that crib, and I thought to myself, why is this little baby here in the hospital? He should be out playing, having fun, laughing, giggling, getting mommy and daddy kisses. Instead, he was lying here in this crib. I didn't know what to do for him, so I thought I would sing lullabies to him. So I picked up his little hand, put it in mine, rubbed his arm, and I started singing lullabies to him. When I ran out of lullabies, I started in with my religious songs, Amazing Grace, and when I finished those, I ended up with Jingle Bells. And tears were streaming down my face the whole time I was singing to him. I thought with his background, he probably never had a lullaby sung to him. And as I stood there, I prayed to God that He would at least let him hear these little lullabies, let him know that somebody loved and cared for him. He died 2 months later, and there's not a day goes by that I don't think of my little baby boy. And his father is now in prison, awaiting trial for murder.
Well, my role was I tried to attend every visit that the mother had with the children before things kind of started going downhill, and I didn't make every visit, but as often as I could I would go, and I would just report to the judge before court, what I would see at the visits and how that went, and just my recommendations on how if the kids should have more time with the mother.
I will make a determination whether to appoint a CASA or don't appoint a CASA. I've actually appointed a CASA in every case that's come to me. I've never not appointed a CASA. The CASA volunteer gets involved, and everybody kind of comes to the show at that particular time. We have a hearing on the matter, and at that time, the CASA volunteer typically gives me a written report, depending on how much time in between they've been appointed and when the hearing is. But the CASA worker will tell me, here are our thoughts, here are our questions, here are our suggestions, and basically, again, giving the court more data in order to make a better decision. That is one of the first things that I read in the file. And there's always exceptions, but generally, I always look at the CASA report first, because that's something that gives me a pretty good outline of what's going on, of where we are right now.
You have an individual with a one-on-one relationship with a child who can give you some specific facts about the child that are gleaned over a period of time, because a relationship develops with the child, which carries out over time. And since that CASA pretty much has a specific focus on that child, you get more detailed information than you would, for example, with a lawyer appointed to represent the child, who can only give so much time to daily interaction.
Privately, so. But their reports are pretty valuable because it's going to be the truth. And it's from a trained person who understands what the truth is. So when you get a CASA report, it's going to give you information you can count on and that you can't get anywhere else. About the first thing I look for in the file is the CASA report, because generally that's the best information. So, that says a lot about their organization.
CASA volunteers contact all of the players in the case. They talk to the biological parents, sometimes grandparents, sometimes aunts, great aunts, all relatives, anybody that has anything to do with the file. They talk to the attorneys, the caseworkers. They summarize everything in a report, usually 2 to 3 pages long. And at the end of that report, they have their recommendations and their concerns. And that's one of the first things I look at. Whether any father is, All this information I already have, but I have it in a file that may be 3 inches thick that I would have to go through for each hearing. And it might take me 2 or 3 hours to go through that file to get what I can get from a CASA report in 3 or 4 minutes.
Earlier today when I was doing some training with CASAs, that just as our sibling groups, the older child is the history keeper. I feel the same way about CASAs, because there may be 5, 6, sometimes unfortunately more caseworkers working with that child, but the one consistency they've had is through their CASA. And so I think CASAs are absolutely wonderful. As far as my team and I, CASA is an integral part of our team. There would be no team without CASA. Any case decisions, I involve the CASA in. Again, you know, they're the history keepers and they have a different perspective. So I feel our team is lacking if we do not have a CASA on a case.
That's what's happening, and I think sometimes they get a behind-the-scenes look that I can't have as an attorney, and I think they get a different perspective of all the other players than the department or an attorney has. And so hopefully they are the eyes and ears for the court. CASA is able to say, yes, the department's doing what they need to. I see them as a supporter of the department, even though they're a supporter of the children. The CASA often has more time to follow up with things than a caseworker. And I'm not saying it's not a caseworker's job to know those things, but sometimes it's helpful that you have CASA able to talk to every single teacher that he had and every single foster parent that we've had this whole time. Spend more time with the kid. If CASA can go, a caseworker goes monthly, but it's a limited time. CASA can say, hey, let's spend time together. Hey, I brought you a book. Let's read this book. I got you a new game. Let's play a game. So you get to really know how that child is probably faster than a CPS worker does. So that you're there to see the strengths and their growth, and you're also there to see that they're not progressing. CASA is someone who provides a stability to a child. You have a child that gets yanked away from parents or relatives or wherever they are, put into a stranger's home, and now they're going to live with this stranger, and the stranger is a foster parent. But they're still a stranger. They're not a relative that the child knows. So once a child meets their CASA, this becomes someone that they're going to bond to. And so you want to be able to know that you can meet that bond. Caseworkers come and go. Foster homes change. It's not the same as having a CASA who always knows where you are, always knows how to get a hold of you on the phone, and is going to be there when they say they're going to be there. You're their voice. You're able to speak for them. You make the difference. And your viewpoint is yours. It doesn't have to agree with anybody else's. You speak for the child, and you get to tell us everything about a child, and hopefully it's something that will mean something to you and that you'll have forever.
For many abused children, this is the only constant adult presence in their life.
In Palo Pinto County, we currently have over 100 children involved in CPS cases, but we only have 39 CASA volunteers at the time. So there's a huge need for the children who don't have a CASA who's looking out for their best interests. So as you consider whether or not to volunteer with the CASA program, I'll explain to you 2 things. First of all, your role as a volunteer will just be immeasurably rewarding for you, but also you will make a positive impact that will affect that child for the rest of his or her life.
However, as the numbers keep growing and more children are coming into care, we are losing that battle of being able to constantly supply a CASA for each of these children. So
it just takes more people in the community that are willing to get involved with CASA, because there's definitely a need for it right now.
But the reward that you get is a lifetime reward, and it's very important to give to these kids because they have been let down over and over again.
They need to decide how strong they are inside and find a place in their heart that they want to give of their time and their energies, because we're here for the long haul. You don't just get to come in for a month or 2. We need you for a year. We need you for 18 months. And as you get more involved with CASA, you'll learn sometimes they're needed for life. It's not just a time until they turn 18. CASAs often support their kids way into adulthood, that they become their friends. At first, you're not going to be their friends. You always want to be an advocate for the child, but you don't necessarily have to be their friend. But later on, it develops into more. You have grandparent relationships. You might have brother-sister relationships that you become closer. So if you're ready to look within your heart and establish a bond with somebody and make a difference, you need to be a CASA.
Other state agencies try to do a good job, but you still need that person that says, look, I love these kids, and I'm going to step into their life on a volunteer basis and try to intervene. And that's really what CASA does. It really fills that gap where families are struggling and where the courts can't really just adequately do the job.
There are over 300 cases of abused and neglected children in Palo Pinto and Parker counties right now. All of them are crying out to be heard. Will you be their voice?